if you are a polymath or generalist and you have zero clue what to do with your life, because look, 99% of all career advice or just any advice in general is to stick to one thing. Because and the problem is there's so much baggage around that word that when you hear that, you just think, oh, I have to pick from one of these preset paths that society has laid out for me, and that's the only thing that I'm going to do for the entirety of my life, right? I'm gonna just do that, and then I'm gonna retire at 65 and just fucking die, literally fucking die. I know somebody whose coworker's friend retired at 65, literally 3 weeks after they retired, cancer diagnosis. Isn't that fucking crazy? You you work your whole life to finally chill and then you get hit with cancer. Motherfucker, your life is right here, right now. And I'm telling you, I don't know if you guys have seen the show Steins Gate. There's a way that you can have your cake and eat it too. It's just going to hurt a little bit more, and you're going to have to put up with a lot more bullshit and suffer probably more than the population. But I've seen it for myself. It is possible. So when you have zero clue and you have direction in life, right? It's just like number fundamentally when you tell that to a polymath or a very like multi-passionate person, you're telling them turn off your curiosity to everything else, which is impossible because that is literally one of our defining characteristic. One of your defining characteristics is that you can't not be curious about a lot of things. So it's like be another person. You might as well say that. So if you are a polymath and generalist, you got no clue what to do with your life, you need something that is going to be able to provide you a sense of focus, right? Because you do need something to focus on, right? This is just creativity 101. You need constraints, right? Um, and that is start with your biggest problems, especially the ones that you are avoiding. For example, if you are overweight, or you're obese, like like for myself, I was pretty much overweight, at some points borderline obese for most of my life. It's actually the first 2 to 3 years now where I've actually been consistently not overweight, right? Because I would also lose some weight a couple times, regain it. I yo-yoed like probably 3 to 5 times, like trying to lose weight, and it's only in the past like 2 years, 3 years again where I've been able to keep it off. So again, if you are overweight and or obese, most people when they have this problem they're just like it just kind of just starts to they just kind of start to I don't know and put that into their identity. They just start, oh, I'm just fat, and that's it, period. Or like when you're struggling with money, that's another problem. If you're fucking drowning in debt like I was last year, I just fucking paid off $20,000 in credit card debt. So when people just have that problem, they're just like, and I do not mean this from a like criticizing way, it is just my observations, right? And by people, I am in this as well, right? When we have these problems, we're just like, oh, I'm just in debt. I guess that's just part of life, being in debt. And we kind of like almost, it's like we're kind of like Stockholm syndroming ourselves into these really shitty situations, And it does not have to be that way, right? Instead, if we look at these as, okay, this fucking sucks. How do we fix it? Instead of reframing these things and these are usually problems that we've just kind of taken into our identity, instead of taking a step back and be like, okay, what would it be like to actually solve this problem? How do we actually fix this? Because that's the first step, really. That's the first step because now you're looking at it like in terms of, okay, this isn't something that I need to like hold on to, right? And so fundamentally, right, your quality of life is going to be determined. And I do not like to make reductive statements like this, right? And there's obviously a whole lot more nuance to it. But in general, I would say to a very large extent, your quality of life will be determined by your ability to identify and solve your own problems. And on top of it, especially for polymaths and generalists, your like problems they're inherently multidisciplinary. They give you focus and they actually allow you to sink your teeth in a lot of different things, right? Because look, every problem is kind of like a convergence point of like reality. There's a lot of different things to it, right? Like for example, like I start with weight loss a lot because that's just been my experience. So I don't want to like try and hypothesize things. But like let's say for myself, I had to learn, you know, I had to be in a caloric deficit or like I had to learn how to like um eat more or sorry, eat less calories than I burn. I had to learn how to go to the gym and gain muscle, right? Because muscle helps burn fat, or it increases your metabolism. And it also it's just fucking good for you to have more muscle, right? More usable muscle, right? Um, what else? Um, but here's the thing. Those things are what I thought I needed to learn, right? When those were just scratching the surface. Those were actually more operational things that I had to do. But what I didn't realize, what kept me stuck for so long was it was these were not the problem, right? The operational stuff, in fact, I would wager that most people, most obese people probably know that they shouldn't be like fucking gorging down Big Macs and large Cokes, right? They probably know that, and yet they still do it. Why? Because there are underlying, I would say, psycho, spiritual, emotional mechanisms, behavioral, whatever, right, that are going on underneath the hood. Now, really, honestly, it goes really deep when you get into this stuff. There's a lot of deep shit that you need to actually unravel that is causing you to turn to these habits like eating a lot of food or smoking a lot or whatever, or jacking off, watching a bunch of porn, things that I have done as well. I've quit porn for like almost 6 months now. But anyways, um, and so that's what I had to learn. I had to learn about like, for lack of a better term right now, it was mental health, right? I had to learn like, okay, like like what is my relationship with food? How does that relate to my mental health? I stress eat whenever I'm anxious. Whenever I used to be anxious, I tended like I wouldn't say like every time I was anxious, I would eat a bunch of food, but I know that every time I was eating a bunch of food, I was anxious, right? So you had to unravel that like, okay, why am I anxious? What is this anxiety? Where does this exist? What is the root cause of this? So all of a sudden, oh, it's not really a diet or I'm a diet. I thought I wasn't recording for a second. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So I thought it was a diet problem. And to an extent, you could say yes, it was a diet problem. Obviously, you need, but what's the problem behind what's the problem of the problem? The problem behind the problem. It's that thing that I'm talking about. It's an internal problem. It's an internal problem. And so I had to learn all these sorts of things. And eventually the if I did not go through all that stuff, like that would not have later led to the rabbit hole of like spirituality and all these like greater connection to the divine and all that sort of stuff. But it started with me just being like, oh man, why the fuck do I eat so much food? And I wish that I could say that this was like, oh, once I figured this out, all of this progress just started happening. It's like I had to go through many hills and valleys, and sometimes I spent a long time down in the fucking abyss, man. And sometimes like I got to the top of the mountain and I fell all the way back down to the bottom, right? It That's fucking life, man. All right. So I'm going on so many tangents. But again, look, see, I talk about this a lot because I've learned so fucking much. But what started it all was just me being like, okay, I'm sick of being fucking fat, right? And so what you find is that these problems that are staring at you at the face, these quote unquote surface level problems are actually an invitation to go deeper, right? That's really what it is. And what that is as well is it's inherently multidisciplinary. So what happens is when you try to solve this problem, you're like the byproduct of that is going to be this tree of knowledge, right? And you're going to learn a fuck ton, and you're going to learn a fuck ton about a fuck ton at the same time at once, right? And relatively faster. And we can go into like I don't know, like I mean, from a neuroscientific perspective, or like at least like maybe I think it's more cognitive science, or maybe is it cognitive psychology? I don't know, but you learn better when you don't when it's when you learn it in the context of other things, right? Or when you learn concepts and see how it fits with other concepts, right? Like the US, like the United States of America, like that wouldn't really make much fucking sense to you if you didn't have the concept of what a country was, right? So problems inherently, they're like this really convenient thing that life has blessed you to be able to learn and like develop like yourself and this like tree of knowledge that spans like from the intellectual to the spiritual to the emotional to these different planes of reality that all exist at once. And you don't really ever think about it, but literally, like you thinking and you feeling are different ways of experiencing the same reality that we all exist in, that we're all kind of like taking part in this grand cooperation, co-partnership, whatever. But that's what I say. Like if you are like literally you don't know what the fuck to do with your life, um, stop trying to figure out what to do with your life and like look in the fucking mirror and be like, okay, what am I avoiding? What the fuck am I avoiding? And oftentimes it's going to be the problems that are staring you right in the face, right? When you look in the mirror, what are the problems that come up? You know it, right? And that's another thing too. There's a part of you that knows, that just fucking knows. All right. And what's the problem is you've covered it up with a bunch of bullshit. We all have, really. I mean, and we still like part of this process is learning to unwind all the bullshit, right? All the bullshit. It's like you're kind of like you're unclogging a toilet, right? A really, really clogged toilet, right? And so all that starts with what you deem surface level problems. So if you think, I'm not making enough money in my job that I fucking hate, well, okay, good. That's a great place to start. That's actually a really great place to start. Okay, where can I get a better job? Or what skills can I learn to get more money, right? To get a higher hourly rate. That way I'm not like just fucking trading in all of my time in for money, right? You can actually like start doing cooler shit, right? So we're kind of all collectively, Sadhguru even fucking says this, man, where like we spend so much of our life just trying to make money. Like what the fuck? Like why would you want to keep having that problem for the rest of your life, right? So I will always go back to it. If you have zero clue what to do with your life, stop trying to think of like changing the fucking world or like um doing some awesome shit, or like you're gonna be a warrior and you're gonna do all this cool stuff for humanity. Because I mean I found it for myself too, like, I guess multi-passionate, like polymaths, generalists, those types of people, we tend to be like uber ambitious for whatever fucking reason. I think it just comes to the scope of our own like whatever. But I think when you're able to instead have that ambition and then you kind of forget about it and instead get really grounded and look at what the fuck is going on in your life right now, that's when you actually start to really like learn how to wield your own power. That's when it really starts. Because Deku, right? I don't really like the anime that much, to be honest, but I think this is a good example. If you've seen My Hero Academia, there's this kid. He receives he receives these powers from literally the strongest hero, right? He goes from literally like he wasn't born with a quirk, he wasn't born with powers. And so but with a chance encounter with literally the world's strongest hero one day, um he's the world's strongest hero is like, you know what? I'm gonna give you my power. And there's a lot of background to this, but he just sees the character of the kid and feels like he should have it, right? And the power is so strong that the kid cannot use it at full strength because it will literally break his arms. It'll break his body if he tries using it at full power. And the thing is, like, that is only the full power of what his of like if he actually tried using what the protagonist actual power was, it would probably blow him up, right? So he actually has to learn how to use like just 1% of it at 1% power. And that's an analogy to I would believe every single human being has a lot of huge potential and power. But you actually need to learn, you need to grow into being able to use that power for whatever. And I don't mean it in a kind of domineering kind of way where it's like I don't know, like a tyrant or a like a dictatorship type of power. I mean like empowerment, not like not like the one that corrupts. Personal power, that's the illusion is you actually want power, but the right kind of power, personal empowerment, agency, being able to do what you like, what you see is necessary. But again, that all starts with looking at what are my biggest problems right now. And and honestly, it's gonna hurt your ego. You're gonna be like, oh, because your ego will get in the way. And I'm not saying the ego is bad. I'm just saying it will get in the way sometimes because you feel like, oh, I'm above this. Like I'm above like this weight loss stuff. I'm above that. I've transcended all that stuff. That's just actually delusion. And trust me, I've been there. I only say this because like I'm literally just reflecting on my own experience, and that's really all that what this video is about. You, fundamentally like if you want to like I don't know, figure out how to live the life you want, you got to learn how to solve problems in your life, right? And see, oh, I'm disorganized. Let's learn how to organize my life. Let's start putting stuff in calendars, right? Whatever that's going to be. And so I say always lean on doing the stuff that hurts your ego a little bit, that you're like, man, I thought I was like above this. When ironically, it's actually there's a concept where it's the descent. So Jung says it a lot, but it's actually the descent that is the ascent, right? So one last time, start with your biggest problems.